Hello and welcome back to Collider Jedi Council. I am Kristian Harloff, a.k.a. Darth Harloff, and this is the show where we talk about everything Star Wars, the movies, the books, everything that we can possibly talk about with Star Wars. We bring it to you guys. Joining me on the council today, it's the old crew, it's the best crew. It is Mark Ellis, Mark 2D2. What's up, man? How you doing?
Kristian, I love doing this show for weeks like this because there's movies that I've seen recently that really upset me. Star Wars is not one of those. Let's celebrate what's good about cinema.
Absolutely. And also joining us, he's back after a 2-week hiatus. It is Obi-Jon Kenobi, John Campea.
Has it been 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Wow. It's good to be back, folks. Talking Star Wars, my favorite thing in the world.
I love it. I can't wait. We got a lot of cool stuff to talk about, too. And this is the calm before the storm. We know August is definitely going to be the calm before the storm. We know that once September hits, it's look out. You're going to get a whole bunch of stories. You're going to get a whole bunch of books.
Well, even before September with D23 next week.
Yeah.
The journey to the Force Awakens.
Yes.
Yeah, so that, by the way, we are going to have some, because D23 is next week, like John mentioned. The three of us will be there on Saturday for sure, which is when the Force Awakens panel happens. I'm assuming we'll probably put up, if there's a trailer, if there's any type of huge news, we'll put up a video. We'll put it up on the Collider channel here, and we'll also be talking about it at great length next week. So,
and let's not forget too, because the two big panels happening at D23, the live action stuff, the Disney's live action stuff, is the Saturday one. Now we know they're going to talk Star Wars there. They're going to talk some Captain America: Civil War, I'm sure, and a lot of other things. But what we're overlooking, though, is that the night before we could get a lot of Star Wars stuff, too, because it's their animation part. Now, they have not mentioned or talked about Rebels in their promo material, but let's not be too surprised if in their Friday presentation we get a bunch of stuff on Rebels.
It's a great point. And not only with Rebels, you're absolutely right. I would almost even say that's a great possibility because I mean the show debuts in September,
so this would be great timing.
Be silly
the
not
next
to
season
do it.
does, yeah.
It would be silly not to do it. And I also think the other thing, we talked about it last week, John. Here is the possibility of a Netflix series. All these rumblings again happening. If indeed, let's say that it's not a rumor. Let's say that it is going to happen. It wouldn't be crazy that it was announced at D23 that we're getting this series.
I'll go as far as to say this. First of all, I don't think that's happening at all. But I think if they don't mention it at D23, I think you can put that rumor to rest. I think if it's true and it's going to happen, I think they'll drop a bomb on that on D23, and it will be the thing to talk about.
Right. All right. So that's just the preview. That was a little appetizer. Now we get into the topics on the show. The first one simply called Star Wars movie news. That is everything happening in the world of the movie news in a Star Wars universe. It could be Force Awakens, any of the anthology films, anything that they're talking about in the movie world. We're going to talk about it now. Mark, what's first?
Kristian, Adam Driver is one of the stars of The Force Awakens, and he's talking Star Wars as much as anybody is allowed to talk Star Wars without, of course, being executed. In a recent interview with Esquire, he mentioned that being on the set of Star Wars was a great organic filmmaking experience, and then you also have those moments when you just don't want to F up because it is Star Wars. He also talked about working with J.J. Abrams and that he is much more of a story-based guy than a special effects-based guy, which I thought was good news, and he referenced that seeing Chewbacca on set, everybody just wants to hug him, even when you want to go to work, you got to hug Chewbacca first. So, Kristian, it's very limited comments, what he's allowed to talk about, but from these, what do you get?
Well, it's funny you say that he said that thing about Chewbacca, too, because even in that special behind-the-scenes kind of featurette they showed at Comic-Con, that's what they said about the suit. It's like every time they had to keep reworking it because everyone kept hugging him. And because they wanted
wearing him out.
Yeah, they're wearing him out. I like the comments. I mean, you watch him, if you watch that Force Awakens panel from Comic-Con, he was very hesitant and watched everything that he said and
didn't give me. I asked the hard-hitting questions. Didn't give me anything.
No, because he doesn't. He's not. Because and there's a reason for that. More so than I think anybody else is that this Kylo Ren character is a character that we are going to be hearing about for a very long time. I still believe that he's Han Solo's kid. I still think that that's the guy you cast if you want to have a cross between the angst of the Skywalker kid plus the kind of smooth, quick-witted soloisms. He's got it, and are you necessarily going to see that in a villain? You don't know. Maybe we don't know what he was like beforehand. Maybe we'll see that in some of the journey of the Force Awakens, who this guy exactly is. I think once Force Awakens comes out and we learn more about Kylo Ren and there's like those twists and surprises from his character, there'll be another novel about him, or there'll be a book, like maybe even a spin-off, an anthology about how he turned. Who knows? But I like the comments. They're limited. But John, what do you think?
I love the comments. I also like the way everybody on this movie, highlighted here by what he's just been talking about, has conducted themselves. they are showing their pure enthusiasm for the movie, but at the same time, they're being completely professional about it. They're following the Lucasfilm line. They're following the company line, yet you don't really feel like they're being reserved. You can feel the enthusiasm they have. The approach that he brings, and the way he tells a story too about, he's told some stories about working with J.J. Abrams, and it really does sound more and more, even though J.J. doesn't like to show it, that J.J. Abrams has been a 12-year-old child in a sandbox, man. Apparently he has been like giddy happy the whole time, like just every day, from what I'm hearing, he showed up to set, amazed that he is directing a Star Wars movie. Well, that's also great to hear too. But I'm going to let you know a little bit something. Don't run with this. Don't start tweeting, hey, Jedi Council said this. This is just something that I heard, and it just makes sense to me. I got told by somebody that I kind of have some confidence in, that don't be surprised when you find out that somebody's name in The Force Awakens is not the name we've been led to believe so far. And I sat on that, and I thought about that. And that was told to me probably about 2 weeks ago. I won't be surprised if Kylo Ren is not actually named Kylo Ren. And if that's the case, huge if, giant if that's the case, that is not inconsistent with what J.J. Abrams has tried to do in the past with other films of his, where, misleading, giving, the name of that villain, it's going to be whatever. And then we find out, actually, no, it's a totally different villain and a totally different person. I wouldn't be surprised, because the one name that never really sat right with me was Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
And then after you see the trailers, that guy doesn't look like a Kylo Ren to me. I wouldn't be surprised. Look, I'm not predicting. I think his name is Kylo Ren. Okay, that's what I really think. But all I'm saying is, don't be shocked or surprised if we find out that's not his name, if it's actually something else.
I smell a wager, Kristian.
No. What I was going to say was that Kylo. The only reason I think that I agree with you that I think that that's going to be a certain name that we haven't heard isn't that name. The only reason I would say Kylo Ren's probably Kylo Ren because of the cards. Because the cards
I know,
that
those
were
were the first thing that I thought
that
too.
was the thing. There's only one name that I wouldn't be surprised, and Snoke might not be Snoke, and I can go ahead and put that $1 in the helmet.
Okay.
Because Snoke might not be Snoke, or there are rumblings that Snoke is not actually
what
the
if
name
that's
Snoke?
not his actual? Because I'll tell you this: if what I'm hearing is true, again, huge if, I think you're right. I think if I had to pick one, I think you're right. I think it's Snoke, but I won't keel over if it's Kylo Ren.
Yeah, I understand.
Because what if it's, Jason Solo?
Well, I mean, but I think there might be.
There could be two names that both fly
There's a Twitter
with it.
question that we're going to get a little later that was asking about him. So we'll get into that
That's
a little
right.
more.
And, but I
What
got
do you wanna say?
my Excel spreadsheet is open. So, John, you still think that Snoke would be the name that changes, even though you think Kylo Ren
First of all,
could be? You think it's definitely going to be Snoke?
I think it's going to be
My money would be no names are changing. If my money had to be on it, no names are changing.
Right.
But if one did change, 5% Kylo Ren,
95%.
95% Snoke.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think about the comments?
I think the comments are great, and I'm just going to focus on what the comments do have in them, because I think Adam Driver's NDA that he had to sign is probably a few pages longer than somebody like Oscar Isaac's, because I think that this character is going to have more ties to canon and to the history of Star Wars, and that you don't want to give away anything, because that would give away so many plot points if we knew anything more about this character.
Yeah.
So once the screen hits, once he's on stage, you're going to know a lot more about the Star Wars universe. The comments are great. It's what we've heard all along. It's that JJ is focused more on storytelling than he is on special effects, which I think is great news. So I'm on board with what Adam Driver said.
Can I throw one thing out there? I'm looking at the mask now. Is it just me, or could that look like an early concept design of a Cylon? Like all that's missing is a red light going back and forth in the eye slot.
It always takes me back to the Old Republic. It always, to me, looks
That's
like
true
it
too,
looks
yeah.
like Darth Revan. I'm still hoping that he's like a Sith relic hunter, and like he throughout time, like that's an Old Republic mask, and the sword, the lightsaber he's got is from the past, and he gets the Vader mask. I'm just hoping that they really tie it into the Sith history, because you got to assume that how the story group is really involved in everything, right? You got to assume, and with Lucas and Lucasfilm and Disney and everybody, is that they've got to know that down the line they want to set up new histories for something that they can tie into, and whether it be the Old Republic or characters or whatever they're going to do. Because look at something like Boba Fett, right? Boba Fett's a character who says hardly anything in the new trilogy, and people loved him and now we're getting a possible movie from him too. That type of stuff will happen again. Now, whether or not it's Kylo Ren or something Kylo Ren finds or sets up, that's what I'm kind of hoping happens throughout the storytelling you're talking about with J.J. Abrams, that they throw in these Easter eggs that are relevant to the story as
Well, there's
well.
never been a better
yeah.
time to do it
Right.
than now.
And it's also that's also why you can't give away anything about this particular character, because I think he does collect relics and he does have so many things that harken back to other bad guys or good guys in the Star Wars universe. I love that you don't think he looks like a Kylo Ren. That he,
Yeah.
his face just doesn't scream Kylo. It's more like a
It's
Mike.
more like a Jeffrey.
Yeah. How many Kylos have you known? All right, go to the next one.
Well, good news, gentlemen. I know that everybody loves being aware that the Force is made up of midi-chlorians, but J.J. Abrams has said that there's going to be no reference to midi-chlorians in The Force Awakens. In the movie, no, is the actual answer that J.J. gave to an interviewer who asked that question. I'm sure that I share your boys' sentiments that this is probably a good thing.
It's a great thing. I mean, come on. I mean, it just doesn't. It's look. If we know it's canon, we know that's the explanation for it. Great. If you want to go and reference it, go back and watch The Phantom Menace, and you can have all the midichlorians you want. But if you're going to tie it back to the original trilogy and everything we knew about how mysterious and wonderful the Force was, I feel that that's what this movie is going to do. And it seems by him just going, no midichlorians. And I don't think it's one of those things to where when you, the guy after you at Comic-Con asked about Darth Plagueis, and he was just like, no, it's not one of those. This is, nope, not happening. So, John, I'm sure that you're thrilled. I probably don't have to ask this question, but do you love that midichlorians are not in this movie?
Everything JJ does makes me so happy.
Yeah.
This reminds me a lot of one of the worst films in cinematic history is The Highlander Part 2, which is
The Quickening.
The Quickening, which is really unfortunate because one of my top 10 all-time favorites is actually the original Highlander. This reminds me of that situation because the Highlander 3 came out, which was not a good movie at all, but Highlander 3 comes out and it just like, let's just pretend Highlander 2 never happened. And there's nothing to reference Highlander 2 in that movie. It's just a lot of references to Highlander 1, which is great. I feel a little bit of retconning going on. Is it? It's established. It's part of canon.
Right.
Nothing you can do about that. Yes, but we can pretend it never happened and we can just ignore it and move forward. And I think you're not going to hear any references to Jar Jar Binks. Look, Kathleen Kennedy, JJ, they're too smart. They know what elements really ticked a lot of people off. And maybe not elements that are the total core of what the problem was in the prequels, but they know they are the hot buttons that just reminds everybody of the prequels. Midichlorians, Jar Jar, a few other things.
Right.
Let's avoid those all that we can.
What I think also is funny though too, because we know and we've heard those voices out there when you're very aware that there are a lot of you out there who enjoy the prequels. But I still think that even those people who love the prequels have a problem with midichlorians.
Yeah,
I would guess, and I would be curious to comment and let me know for those people who love the midichlorians, the prequels. Do you have a problem with midichlorians, or you're okay with it? I'm curious of that conversation, but for us here, it just took away that mystery. Mark, are you thrilled with this?
Yeah, I don't hate the concept of midichlorians, but I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that knowing that there's some sort of physical property out there takes away the magic from what the Force was in the classic trilogy. And the fact that it's a part of canon is fine with me. Every family has those dimwits that you don't invite on Family Feud to participate, and you just kind of sweep them into the closet. So that's fine with me if we never bring up midichlorians again. It's the same thing as like stats aren't the most important thing in the Star Wars universe. Not everybody who has the Force has to go to the Combine and get measured in their 40 time and all these other things just so we can know how powerful of a Jedi you are. So you don't need this in there, so why have it?
Right. All right, what's next?
Simon Kinberg has a movie coming out this weekend, which you probably shouldn't see. He was one of the writers of Fantastic Four, but he also has been involved in the Star Wars universe in the creation of these new films. And in an interview with Entertainment Weekly, he clarified exactly what his role was and that it seems like it was more of a consultant, as he is quoted as saying, "I'm like a friend of the court. I consult on the movies. I worked on 7, helped break the story, read scripts, drafts at certain points, and gave my thoughts, whatever they were worth." And so it basically sounds like they sat around at Lucasfilm. They kicked around a lot of ideas. They had a whiteboard where a lot of people were involved at various times. They talk about it. It was a very symbiotic relationship, and that he's just one of the many people that contributed to the story of what we're going to see in this new trilogy.
I love the comments, and it's good to know. I mean, this is again the creative team that they're putting. Simon Kinberg, for as busy as he is very involved in Star Wars, as he just pretty much confirmed. But he is a Star Wars fan. And he's not just like, again, going back to the prequels, he's not just like a Rick McCallum who you put in there and goes, "Oh, this is the greatest things ever." This is like this is a guy who knows the universe, and you watch what he did. I'm pretty sure he was the guy who wrote. And I don't know if he directed it, but no, because he didn't direct it, but he wrote the finale to Rebels last season, and that was a great episode. He's heavily involved in Rebels. I believe he's the executive producer with Filoni, I believe, and you can tell that this is a Star Wars fanatic. This is a guy who knows the lore. He's helping build the new canon. He's part of it, the same way the story team is. So to have him as a consultant, and I want him as a consultant, especially with Rogue One, you need him as a consultant. He's there talking to Filoni and all these guys in the time period that it takes place with Rebels. He obviously is very enriched in the history of Episode 4 and everything else too. So you want there are some guys that's, again, like, to where I know I can pretty much talk about the Old Republic pretty well. If we had a conversation about Knights of the Old Republic, there might be some things that I may know a little bit more than you guys. There might be more things about facts in Episode 4 that you know. But and there's just an enriched, between the three of us, we can have a really great conversation and creative stories. Imagine what these guys do. Imagine what they can do. And to have him as one of those guys, I'm excited. But Mark, do you like these?
Just the fact that it sounds like a Knights of the Round Table situation where we're all going after one grail, and that would be making a good Star Wars film. And look, Rick McCallum was in a tough situation too. Okay, that he's working with George Lucas. That George Lucas is the overseer of everything when they made the prequels. So I don't really bag on Rick McCallum too much, although he probably did have something to do with Midi-chlorians.
He's a politician, though.
I can see that. I can see that. Kinberg, on the other hand, seems like a guy who not only in the Star Wars universe is very good at creative stuff. Fantastic Four crap aside, he also has been heavily involved in X-Men, which has turned out to be a great story. So I think that having his mind as one of them in the room is a great thing.
Huh?
Well, one thing I'll say about Rick McCallum, though, is that from a functional point of view, he is an outstanding producer. Like, he was in a situation where it was like George threw out whatever wild fantasy he had about how to get this done, and McCallum always found a way to make it happen.
Right.
I'm not taking away his producing.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm just saying, like, the dude is a remarkable producer. That being said, I am going through a perception shift on Simon Kinberg. No longer, in one day, Simon Kinberg went from being the dude who wrote X-Men Days of Future Past to, after watching Fantastic Four, he's gone to Simon Kinberg, the dude who wrote Jumper and XXX State of the Union. That's the Simon Kinberg I see now. It's weird how one movie in one day can completely alter my perception of the dude. So now when I hear a story like this, 1 week ago, I would have smacked you in the face if you would say, I'm about to say what I'm going to say. I'm relieved today to hear he does not have hands-on writing of what's going on in Star Wars.
That he's just part of the team?
That he's just consulting. I find myself relieved now. A week ago, I would have died with joy to hear he's actually penning the script, because a week ago, he was the Simon Kinberg who wrote X-Men Days of Future Past. But today, he's the dude who wrote Jumper. I have... Fantastic. This is how tragic Fantastic Four is.
It's not a good movie.
It has made me lose a lot of faith in Simon Kinberg. This made me lose a lot of faith in a lot of people, but Simon Kinberg does not escape unscathed in that criticism.
I don't disagree, but the thing is, with that movie, if we're talking Fantastic Four here, is that we don't know everything that happened.
No, we don't.
We don't. And
we don't.
Because
We never will.
There's two scenarios here. There's more than two, but the two scenarios I'm looking at here, the first is that it was Kinberg's script. They really didn't know what to do with it. It was they shot Trank did the job that he had to do, and and then we got what we got. The other scenario is that there were these problems that we thought. Trank wasn't able to shoot everything that Kinberg put in the script, and maybe a lot of things that tied in to make it a better movie. And there was a lot of problems, and then Kinberg had to fix with Matthew Vaughn or whoever else there was rumored to have helped, and his back was against the wall because the writer and the director get the brunt of it when it's a turd. And but we don't know the case. You're absolutely right. This could have just been a case to where Kinberg's writing just wasn't up to it this time. Or it could be something that he did the best he could with this disaster.
Right. First of all, I mean, I'm going to give everybody a pass artistically at least once. Like the Rolling Stones have had a couple crappy albums too. But Kinberg, you can't give him all the credit for the few good things that were in Fantastic Four, much like you can't blame Fantastic Four on all his shoulders, or even Josh Trank's or the stars or anybody like that. But having said that, if you put your name and you attach it to something and you get a paycheck, we are able as fans to say that guy wrote that piece of crap. And Fantastic Four was exactly that, particularly the script and the dialogue and the way the story goes from point A to point B to point toilet. It is a horrendous movie to watch, and some of that is going to fall on Kinberg. Can he redeem himself? And is the fact that it seems like the brain trust at Lucasfilm in creating these movies is so much more functional and normal than what was going on at 20th Century Fox for the production of Fantastic Four. That's the best sign of all.
Well, that's why I go back to what John said, too. Not in the same, thank God, because he wrote all this stuff. I'm happy he's just part of the team, but I'm also, because he's got such a full slate also. But the reason why I'm happy that he is part of the team is because even if it's not writing dialogue, he knows the history. He knows what the tone is. And if you see, regardless of what you want to say about Fantastic Four, we all agree that Rebels fits the tone of Star Wars. He's heavily involved with that.
And he's definitely involved with that, and you can't suddenly throw that out the window. Like I said, I'm just 24 hours removed from watching Fantastic Four, so I'm in a very vulnerable, sore, and tender place right now, so I'm just kind of lashing out.
Yeah, I totally get it. All right, Mark, what's next?
Well, you know, when I'm in a vulnerable, sore place, I tend to watch Star Wars, and you get a new opportunity to do that on November 7th because the new Blu-ray Steelbooks for the original 6 films will be available. Each film comes with beautiful new character packaging, and it has some audio commentary from George Lucas that is already existing and the film crew, as well as audio commentary from archival interviews with the cast and the crew. The complete saga includes all 6 feature films on Blu-ray, along with 3 additional discs containing more than 40 hours of previously released extensive special features. Kristian, your take on them releasing these new Steelbooks right before The Force Awakens?
It's smart. It's really smart. Now, I know the answer when I ask Campy is like, can you buy 3? But it's smart. It's smart for the younger fans out there that are just getting into it. It's smart for the older fans or other fans who want the brand new featurettes. Anytime you put them out, the thing is, I wonder if these are the actual covers because that's a lot of evil going on. You got one good guy in there. I personally would have liked to have maybe the Emperor on. Get Grievous out of there and put
Obi-Wan.
Yeah, but I would put the Emperor on 3. I would put Obi-Wan on maybe 4, and then throw Vader on 5, and then Luke on 6. If you're going to do that.
Why does a stormtrooper get the Empire Strikes Back?
Right.
Have you seen the end of that movie? They couldn't throw it in the ocean with their blasters, and yet they get the cover of the movie. Are you kidding me?
But as far as these Blu-rays, I'll be getting them, and I know I'm a sucker. Every time they bring something out, I'll be getting the new ones. But it's also because my collection got kind of screwed over the years, so I wouldn't mind having the Steelbook.
What happened, guy?
He had a kid, I heard. I heard a rumor that he had a kid.
It's true, but I can't find Jedi. There's Phantom Menace. I mean,
man, Watto's been written around your
Republican candidates. But I like the idea that they're doing this. It's a smart move, John.
I have always said I will never spend $1 on the new edition whatevers. I don't care if it's Blu-ray. I don't care if it's pure holodeck stuff where it looks like the actors are playing out right in front of you. Time for me to get over that. I'm going to buy it. And I'm going to buy all 6. And if for no other reason, if I never crack the cases, these are gorgeous.
Yeah.
I want these on my shelf. I am floored by that Palpatine one. That is by far my favorite one. That is a gorgeous piece of art, just beautiful. My one thing, as I said, I would take out General Grievous. I would put in Obi-Wan. I would put in the Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan. In that one, I think that would just first of all, it gives more balance to the Force between the good and the bad, but also he's a more prominent character, more important character of the story than Grievous, who is anyway. I think these are gorgeous. These are beautiful. And for nothing else, I'd get them just for all of that behind-the-scenes stuff. Because I've always said this. Everybody knows how much I hate the prequels. But aside from maybe the Lord of the Rings Blu-rays and DVDs, you will never have more fascinating and interesting bonus content as you did on those discs. Like how they go into everything, but how we shot all these different things and blah, blah. And it is absolutely fascinating to watch. So for no other reason, I will buy this stuff just for those.
Are there more featurettes on? Are they going to do anything from Force Awakens? Did it say in this?
And has there been any mention of the price?
It said nothing from Force Awakens. The price has not been mentioned. I'm sure it's going to be fairly high as far as Blu-rays go, but it looks like it's a lot of existing stuff and not that much new stuff, which is one of the reasons why, like, when it comes to Star Wars, I either like it, love it, or really love it. And this one I merely like because it doesn't seem like there's going to be as many new features as you would want leading up to Force Awakens. They may put the trailer in there. They may put that that behind-the-scenes footage, maybe a couple of teasers, but it's fine you don't have that. And the cover, I'm not going to get too upset about because we've already had so many variant covers of Star Wars material over the years. It's not like somebody's going to pick up Return of the Jedi and say, oh, this is about the Emperor. I thought it was about Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader getting redeemed. We know what it is. Having said all that, it really pisses me off that you don't have Luke Skywalker on any of these covers. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Have you seen the movies? Have you seen Han Solo? He plays a role. You could put R2-D2 on there. He's more important than a lot of these other things going on. It's ridiculous to me that you're re-releasing these things and you're not putting on the heroes of the saga.
Good. I can feel your anger.
It's stupid. I don't get it. But
it is right. I mean, one of the things that the prequels did was that they fundamentally changed the perception of Star Wars from the story of Luke Skywalker to truly the story of Star Wars is the story of Anakin Skywalker when you really step back and look at it. But even then, Luke is, if not the number one, then the number two central figure of the Star Wars saga. You're absolutely right. I was saying Obi-Wan, but you're absolutely right. The
Luke should be
absence
at
of Luke,
episode 5.
probably instead of the Stormtrooper.
And let me ask you guys this. This is coming out November 7th. Why is it coming out this year? Because The Force Awakens is coming out. Who's in The Force Awakens? Luke, Han, Leia. They're pretty good. Maybe
Well, there is a
Stormtrooper
Stormtrooper in there, too, you know.
Stormtrooper.
All right. That's it as far as the Star Wars movie news goes. The next segment of the show is simply called What's the Deal with Canon? That is everything that is happening in the world of Star Wars. This is the books, the comics, video games, anything that links back to the movies. We talk about it here on the show. There are a couple things happening so far. Mark, what's up first?
Well, Star Wars Battlefront is a game a lot of you are getting excited about. Maybe you spend your money on that in November over the Steelbook Blu-rays, or maybe buying both. Raid your mom's wallet. It will be at GamesCon, which is a convention that they're going to have more stuff about Battlefront than they have released before. So if you go to GamesCon, you're going to get to see new things involved in the game, and the game comes out to the public in late November with a special added set to be released in earlier December if you pre-order it. So, Kristian, should Battlefront be a GamesCon?
Should it be a GamesCon? Yeah, but look, I don't care anymore. I just want to play the game. Although there was a brand new trailer that came out for Battlefront also, and it was pretty cool. It's like
For Fighter Squadron.
For Fighter Squadron, yeah, and you saw it was Battlefront. Right?
Yeah, but Fighter Squadron is that not that's a part of
part of the game. Yeah.
Yes.
You're not in space. You're still on a planet in the atmosphere. It was almost like Top Gun. It was really cool to see that from the same way that they did with that last display when they had the on Hoth, when you see the Empire's point of view and the Rebellion point of view. They did the same thing with Fighter Squadron, and that. I have to be honest, out of everything I've seen so far, that is what I want to play the most. I want to fly a TIE fighter. I want to fly an X-Wing, and I want to be just zooming around in there. So I'm sure they're going to show this at Gamescom. I just want it to get here already because I know that we're probably going to be playing it here when it comes out often, and I'm super excited for it.
But and I should point out, I think GamesCon already happened. That this stuff was already announced at GamesCon.
Okay.
And the aerial
is that where the
combat
trailer
mode.
came out?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And for the first time ever, you can play as Boba Fett's ship. And the Millennium Falcon, I believe, too. So, this is... If you didn't already sell us on Battlefront just with the boots on the ground ones, this is mind-blowing.
John?
I have been so neutral, slightly positive, indifferent about Battlefront up till now, because to me, a lot of Battlefront to me has looked very generic first-person shooter. I'll be really honest. It really has. The cool thing about those is it's Star Wars, and so that's what's had me interested, but nothing's been blowing my mind. Hot damn!
Gotcha.
Yeah, this is the most exciting thing of the week to me.
Yeah.
I've had a bunch of people tweeting me, John, did you see this? Battle Squadron or Fighter Squadron, whatever it's called. Did you see this? Did you see this? And I put it off for a few hours because I was in the middle of some other stuff. Finally watched it. Just another thing from Battlefront. It totally took me back to X-Wing and TIE Fighter days.
Yeah.
Remember those games? Still amongst my favorite computer games of all time. It's so especially when you're right in the cockpit of that TIE Fighter. And granted, you weren't in space. I would have liked to have been in space, but irrelevant. That's just the environment. It totally felt like those games again. It felt more like Star Wars to me because it didn't feel like a generic fighter shooter. It didn't feel like a whatever. It felt like Star Wars to me. And I was just giddy. I'm sitting there watching this footage and I'm like, I'm played it again. And then it was intercut with this woman speaking English who clearly English was not her first language, really struggling through it. I thought, anyway, let her speak in whatever her native language is and subtitle her. Come on, guys, whatever. It's awesome. I am now completely on the boat with everybody else about being totally pumped for Battlefront. I cannot wait to get my hands on this game now.
Mark?
I might have to get a PS4. I mean, that's what I was thinking. It's like every time I see footage from this, I'm like, well, how much do I actually have in the bank that I can devote to getting a PlayStation 4?
I'm sorry, let me interrupt.
Yeah.
Is Battlefront not coming out on Xbox?
Or Xbox.
Yeah, it's coming out.
Oh, okay, sorry. It just gave me a bit of a...
I'm pretty sure
and
it
look,
is.
and I was, it's coming out for both of them.
Yeah.
And I was an Xbox guy, too. I don't have an Xbox One either. So if you have an Xbox One that you want
We
to dust
happen to
off
have
and
one
give to
here
me,
in the office.
Here in the studio.
As fate would have it.
Then
Yes.
Playing
it means that I will be hanging out a lot more, and we're just all going to be really good friends. This is great news.
Yeah. Okay. All right. What's next?
Yeah, well, on September 4th is Force Friday, everybody. I'm going to be in Kansas City, Missouri then, and I might be at a Toys R Us in Kansas City, Missouri, because Toys R Us has just announced that on that Friday, they're going to unveil the new Star Wars line of toys that is the Force Awakens. It's going to be new Star Wars products. We're not sure exactly how many of the Force Awakens toys are going to be coming out at Toys R Us on that day, but they're also going to do a lot of events surrounding Star Wars and celebrating the history of Star Wars, the history of the toys up to this point. And if you're there on Force Friday, they have a lot of cool giveaways and posters and stuff like that. In New York Times in particular, there's going to be a huge exhibition about the history of Star Wars merchandise. So a lot of cool stuff happening in Toys R Us on Force Friday.
Oh, man, it's going to be a big day for Star Wars there because it's funny. There was some comment, and I forgot to put this in the notes today, so I might as well bring it up here as well. Bob Iger was asked, because they're projecting now, and this goes back to what we were talking about today in Movie Talk with about how much money Universal has made overall as a studio, and I kind of referenced how Star Wars right now, it's being projected to make record-breaking numbers. And Iger kind of, we're optimistic. He's just he doesn't want to jinx it, and I get it. But when you hear about just the pure excitement that is happening, it is people are getting ready. We're talking about Battlefront for games. I mean, we have a full weekly show that we're doing about it. And then you have this, the toys. What really is essential to what made Star Wars back in '77 were the toys. Everyone remembers the toys and. The prequel era, I remember when everyone was getting excited about that, and they didn't do as well as everyone thought they would. But they still, I remember how much of a craze it was when the Darth Maul toys came out and everything too. So this is another wave of that happening. It's a big day, and I also wonder if September. John, we talked about this last week here when you weren't here. Was that if September 4th is it's the what's called Force Day?
Force Friday.
Force Friday.
Yeah.
One of these days on another
Also known as
4.
Bill Cosby's date night.
Go to Toys R Us and have some fun.
Man. So we're wondering if the trailer, if it doesn't debut at D23, and because J.J. Abrams said that it would come out in the fall, if it was possible that September 4th was the day the trailer hit. But before you answer that, what are your thoughts on the toys coming out?
You cannot overemphasize how important the role of merchandising was to the cultural phenomenon that Star Wars became. Also, you cannot underestimate the role of merchandising in Star Wars in general and how successful Star Wars became in and of itself, and the reverse, how Star Wars played a role in merchandising becoming a big thing. Merchandising in movies really was born with Star Wars. Yeah. I mean, the ideas had always been there, and it had always been done, but if you have read what we often refer to now as kind of the Bible for any Star Wars fan, which is How Star Wars Conquered the Universe, if you read that, they have a number of chapters really dedicated going into what merchandising did for it. Having a day, Force Friday, whatever, that's celebrating that, putting an emphasis on that is very much in the tradition of Star Wars. And I think if it truly is, if Star Wars is really going to be passed on to a new generation, that's what's going to be it. I could only see, remember, there was no home video when, I mean, yeah, I had a VHS player and whatever, but there was no just VOD anytime. There was no YouTube. There was no BitTorrent, whatever. I only saw Star Wars when I can actually get my mom to take me and go see Star Wars. I can only see Empire Strikes Back when my mom would take me, but I could play Star Wars and live Star Wars every day because I had the toys at home. If they're going to pass on that to the next generation, they've got to have a focus on this. They got to have an emphasis on this, and they got to make it work, and they're going to on every single level.
Mark?
Pew, 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 pew. Come on. Dun, 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 dun,
That's the wrong franchise.
dun. Shut up, John. Yeah. Let's go, Kristian. Let's go get some chicks and some beers.
This is literally what he said to me. That's what he says every day. That's just his prep for before every show.
No, sir, I didn't see you playing with your dolls again. This is great news. I mean, I'm not personally going to go to Toys R Us at midnight and buy these, but again, we said this on the show a lot of times. A lot of the time, you see Star Wars release new news and give new hints as to new characters through the toys like this. So maybe if you go to Toys R Us at midnight, you might get some clues as to The Force Awakens before anybody else does.
All right, what's next?
We have a story on here that I think is going to upset maybe you as a father. I don't know how you feel about this.
Right.
I'm kind of... It's a good idea in theory. Is that there's going to be 2 new Star Wars kids books that come out in September, and it's through the same group that did these Put Me in the Story series of children's books, which is where you kind of get to play around. It's kind of like a modernized version of Choose Your Own Adventure. So the Star Wars versions of these are going to be Star Wars Rebels, Battle Plans from Darth Vader, and Star Wars The Force Inside. Now, in Battle Plans from Darth Vader, you, the child, get an order from Darth Vader to squash a band of rebels that are trying to do no good to your empire. Good motivational speech for kids there. And then in The Force Inside, you get to choose whether you want to be a Jedi or a Sith. I'm pretty sure if I know kids, which side most of them are going to take. So regardless of this poisoning the way America's youth thinks, and indeed the world, Kristian, are you excited that there's little kids that are going to get to be evil?
Well, or good. Don't just go
Maybe.
evil.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think this is fun for kids. I would have loved this when I was a kid as well. I'm sure there had some certain things, but this is going to be fun for little kids. I mean, you're laughing at the gator in the middle, aren't you?
No, I'm not.
No? What are you
I'll
laughing
get
at?
I'm not. Look, it's a universal truth. Children are idiots. They're all,
Hey.
and I'm just looking at the one kid who's got his lightsaber pointed directly at the lower part of his chin. Is this how we hold it, Master Yoda? It's like, yeah, who put lightsabers in the hands of these kids? This is not a good idea.
You just imagine Darth Vader walking into a meeting and a bunch of little kids are sitting around. He's like, oh, no, this isn't going to go well.
That kid looks like he's crapping his pants as we speak. The kid on the end looks like he's absolutely loading in his pants.
And that poor bastard actor who has like, oh, I got to wear the mask.
See, I get to be in Star Wars. Here, put this fruit on, kid. Aw.
All those kids right now are thinking, wow, Master Anakin looks upset.
Give this lightsaber to your son when you get older. But for me, overall, I think it could be fun for a kid to play. It's a fun story.
Right.
All right.
I'm not going to read too much into it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
Look, if you read it in a certain tone, like what Mark Ellis just did, it can sound very nefarious and evil.
It does to me.
It can. I actually really can read that way, but I think that's just in how we're reading. It's going to come off as harmless. I have no doubt about it.
All right, Mark, what's next?
All right, well, we're going to talk a little bit about Visceral as well. The video game company Electronic Arts talked about their slate of upcoming Star Wars projects that are coming out in the next few years. They project that Star Wars Battlefront will do extremely well, and they mentioned that Visceral Games project is coming along swimmingly, which is very, very exciting because this is something that we haven't known that much about yet, and part of that is just the hubbub of Battlefront. But Kristian, this has got to be good news going forward that EA is that excited about their upcoming slate.
Yeah, well, I think you hit the nail on the head here as far as why we haven't heard too much about it yet, and that's because the focus is really going towards Battlefront.
It's the Rogue One to the Force Awakens.
Absolutely,
it is Battlefront.
and I think that once you hit the release date for Battlefront, you're going to start hearing more because I'm sick of calling it the Visceral Project. I want to know what it is. There's been many rumors.
It's rumored
Han
here to
Solo.
be about Han. Yeah.
That's what they're saying. And real quick, I'd like to, and I was talking to our graphics guy Ray beforehand too, and he's been getting a lot of his images also from StarWars7News.com as well too. So I wanted to give a shout out.
Shout out.
Well, and they also they put our show up every week. So thank you guys for that, and thank you for the images as well. But in regards to the project. Yeah, I really want to know more about the game slate in general. The Visceral Project, we'll learn about that. I think that we're going to get a wave similar to what the books are doing. Not as many, obviously, but I think eventually, this could be 2016, it could be 2017, we're going to start getting a slate of games. Like, you're going to hit something in the beginning, and then once you hit like April and May, there'll be another one. I think you may get 2 or 3 games a year, maybe more. I don't know. But John, you're a little more of a gamer than I am. Are you happy about what they're saying with Visceral? Do you wish you knew about more of it now?
Well, I mean, you completely nailed it when you said they are doing what they need to do. They are keeping all the attention right now on Battlefront. And that's what they need to do. And that's the right thing to do, because if this thing lifts off well and does well, then we're just going to be more excited for the next Star Wars game. They understand the marketing avalanche, and yes. So, am I excited for what is to come? Yes. Everything I've heard about this game, and I've heard the same thing about it being very Han Solo based, and you're going to be playing his adventures and stuff like that. That sounds really intriguing to me. I'm very excited about it. But the great thing about Star Wars, when you're talking about potentials in video games, you can play any genre of video game you want with a Star Wars universe. You can play a StarCraft-style, real-time strategy game. You can play a first-person shooter. You can play, choose your own adventure if you want. The doors are wide open with what they can do with this. So they're starting with Battlefront. Great. That Han Solo game, if it is a Han Solo game, is going to be a lot different than Battlefront, which excites me, and just to see where they go with it. But you're right. I almost don't want to hear them talking about it right now until you're ready to tell
me what it is.
Yeah, tell me what it is. Until then, I'm fine with Battlefront.
Mark?
Let me ask you guys a question. If it is indeed about Han Solo, do you think they should put Han on the cover or a stormtrooper? Well, seriously.
What if it's Han in the stormtrooper helmet?
Hey, he's pulling a Boyega. He's just pretending to be a stormtrooper until further notice.
That's what I mean.
But do you guys think, because everybody goes to D23 this year, and we're hoping we get maybe a slate of anthology films of what's coming up next, do we need to do the same thing for the video games, or is it too far out? Because this is projected to come out, I believe, 2017.
Wow.
So do we need to know now? Do we want to see a slate of video games the same way we want to see a slate of upcoming films?
You just said something right there, because I was going to make a point, but I didn't know it was 2017. This is going to... So here's a prediction thing. It is going to be about Han Solo. They are 2017.
I see
now
where
they
it's
announced
going to coincide.
It coincides now. It makes a lot of sense. That's
Merchandising.
another reason why. And then it coincides with the Solo movie that comes out. Han Solo will probably not be alive at this point, so the nostalgia purposes are going to be...
He's living past The Force Awakens.
Well, you owe me a steak dinner if it doesn't, so we'll see. But then it comes to...
just wagering on a man's life over steak. You guys are awful.
But that life will come back full force in this
look
game.
At you.
And
wow.
then playing into the spin-off movie. The other prediction I'm going to make here, because there was this thing that just came out, and I was going to reference it today, but then I guess Fox pulled a copyright thing on it, and it was called Laser Cannon Arises or something. It was like a spoof on... It was like almost like what Bad Lip Reading does with all their trailers.
Right.
And these guys did it. I showed you a little bit of it.
Yeah.
They've done it, I guess, with the prequels, but they did it with Episode 4, and it was hysterical. And they got some really...
I heard about this, but it
Laser
got
Moon
pulled?
Arise. It got pulled today.
Oh, damn it.
So Anthony and Gruber, who we've talked about, who was just in Age of Adeline, he did the voice for Han Solo and dubbed it over, and it was perfect.
And he did Obi-Wan, too.
And he did Obi-Wan, and he was perfect. Now, he's been rumored to be the voice of Han Solo in Rebels. I will put top dollar on the fact that he's going to be the voice of young Han Solo in the video game. Now,
no reason not to.
Why not?
Yeah.
In
especially
the video
if
game.
He's playing Han Solo in the standalone movie
that's
coming
probably
out,
not
too.
going to happen. I think that I don't know if he's got the chops yet to be able to pull. That's a big thing to pull off, but you never know.
He actually does have the chops, like his face looks exactly like
he's
Han
got
Solo,
the mutton chops.
The acting chops, But do you think that in Gruber could be the voice of Solo?
Oh, absolutely. He sounds so much like Harrison Ford when he talks, and it's just a matter of can he pull off the acting. I mean, I think that he'll be a contender to be in the actual film, but for the video game, absolutely.
Yeah.
If for no other reason, then he can convince us that he is Harrison Ford.
Right.
I mean, if we're not asking him, he wasn't great in Adeline, but if we're just asking him, look, get on camera and do your best Han Solo, just go full solo, he could probably convince us for the length of a movie.
You never go full solo.
So you're saying the actual movie, not just the voice. You're saying actual live action?
I actually believe there is a possibility
Wow.
he's actually Solo. If there is if they go that young or that particular age, then I think there's a possibility it could be him. I wouldn't be my choice.
Well, I give you two options. These are the only two options you get if you're directing the movie. I say you can only cast Anthony and Gruber or
Right.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt
As a young Solo?
for a spin-off movie.
I don't go Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
You go in Group.
Yeah, all I'll see is Joseph Gordon-Levitt, unfortunately.
Nah, at this time,
I love Joseph Gordon-Levitt. For the record, I think he's a tremendous actor.
At this moment in time, I take JGL simply because he's such a great actor that I know the movie's going to be good. Like, I'd rather have him not look like Harrison Ford than have somebody that looks exactly like Harrison Ford doing a Han Solo impression. He was able to look like a Star Wars movie. So,
and he was able to look like a young Bruce Willis.
Not that much like a young Bruce Willis.
But you know what? Now I'm picturing in my head Gordon-Levitt doing a Han Solo impersonation. I've never seen him do it, but I'm picturing it in my head.
I bet he could.
If anybody could do it.
You know, I bet he could.
Yeah.
Now you got me doubting myself.
It's interesting. It's just all right. So,
talented kid.
Now, there actually is one more story. I don't think you have it, Mark. But as far as the comic book, Vader, Darth Vader, issue 8 came out. I just finished it today. It's funny because I kept going back and forth of what my favorite comics are. John, I don't think you heard me review last week. We talked about Obi-Wan.
No, I didn't.
It was Star Wars. It was it's probably my favorite issue, the Star Wars Obi-Wan issue that's come out so far. I loved it. And the ranking because of that right now, it was going like from Vader to Kanan to Star Wars.
Last week it was Star Wars.
Well, no, but it was.
Right?
I still had Vader at number 1.
Yeah.
It's now for me. It's Kanan still at number 1, Star Wars at 2, and Vader at 3.
Oh, I didn't like it as much.
This issue was okay. I'm getting a little. It's becoming a little repetitive. The beginning, I was, the scientist is putting together deals for Vader on the side with bounty hunters, and I was like, okay, this is fine. And then I want to see more of Vader. Vader doesn't pop up until like halfway through the issue. And once you got to the end of, he's still going after Luke, and it's going to cross over into Star Wars like they promised that it would. So they're setting you up for that. But I found this one a little dull. I don't know why. I just wasn't on board with it, and I don't know if it was just because he wasn't in it for so long, and maybe because I was just coming off of that great issue in Star Wars issue 7 with Obi-Wan, that it was a little bit more of the Star Wars that I love. So I still love the writing. I think the writing's fine. This particular issue didn't do it for me.
And for all you moms and dads out there, that's the guy that's going to be giving orders to your 3-year-old when they're reading that new storybook. So
good hands.
Yeah.
Good hands.
Now, moving on here, we normally do Address the Council. This week, no Address the Council. We're going to save that for either next week or the week after. We'll see. Depends on what's good. Probably D23. We'll probably have one.
If I thought more about the covers of these steel books and how upset I was, I could have done Address the Council.
Maybe next week. So this is where we let you guys address the council, and you do that by tweeting in. Every week, you hashtag Collider Jedi Council. You put your tweets out there. We pick them. We talk about them. Mark, what's up first?
Tom Young writes us first, and it handles at Tom Young Comedy. Sure, he's a very funny dude. Is there any chance that we'll get an Ahsoka Tano anthology movie?
No way. No chance, because I think she's going to be dead by the end of Rebels Season 2.
I agree.
Yeah.
And, my thought when I read that was that her story is being told in Rebels so much that you don't really need another movie in addition to that. And, again, you like to bet that everybody's going to die, so she's not going to be around. But you could get maybe a prequel, and she could pop up in some sort of anthology
I think she could pop up somewhere in a movie, depending on what I wouldn't even be surprised if she's still alive by the time it rolls around that she pops up in Rogue One. Probably not. But I can hear my brother yelling at the screen right now. He loves Ahsoka Tano. And he actually has said this to me as well, too. He wants her in an anthology movie. And I said, dude, it's not going to happen. There's just no way. It's just leading up to Vader versus Ahsoka. It has to. It has to lead
Rebel
up to
Season
that.
2, you mean?
Rebel Season 2, excuse me.
I agree.
Yeah, it has to lead up. And that's what I want to see. I would rather see those two, their story. It began in Clone Wars. It ends in animation in Rebels. I would rather see it happen there, because I think that you're hoping that every film goer knows about Rebels and Clone Wars, and
Which
they don't. Right, they don't. So, John, you think no way it's going to happen?
No way it's going to happen. And for the record, I hate Ahsoka Tano.
Still, I thought you said you liked her.
But what they seem to be doing with her in Rebels, and the idea of it turning into this story arc that culminates in finally Master and Apprentice having a showdown and her like dying heroically at his hand, which is kind of foreshadows then another showdown that comes later in Vader's life between Master and Apprentice, but this time he was the apprentice, Obi-Wan was the Master. That I'm now excited about it. I'm totally excited, but you're absolutely right. She lives in the animated world. The vast majority of Star Wars fans have no idea who she is, or people who would be buying a ticket to go to see these Star Wars movies have no idea who she is. And I think, look, if you're a fan of Ahsoka Tano, and there's a lot of people out there who are, enough to say that she works in the cartoons. And for people like me who didn't like her before, but I love what they're doing with her in Rebels, she's working in this medium right now. Why does she then have to be in every other medium?
Right.
Let her story work. Let it be great. And I think you're absolutely right. This story has to end with Vader killing her and to really, he's a bad guy.
I'll tell you, there is one person, though, that I could see making the transition, and that's Kanan. I could see Kanan popping up as a live-action character. Now, whether that's in an anthology film or of his own, or if it is indeed him popping up in Rebels, or him being Max von Sydow, which is probably the less likely.
But is he going to be played by Freddie Prinze Jr.? I mean, that's the question. So I don't think any of them. I don't think any of them come alive out of. I think the end of Rebels is going to be an Empire Strikes Back ending. When Rebels ends, it ends with Kanan dead, with Ezra either on the dark side or dead.
Right.
I think Hera is dead. I think they're all dead.
I
do too.
You can't kill them all.
I think a lot
guys.
of them
Over the
A
course
couple of them are
four
gonna like
seasons?
escape, and they're gonna go to like Dagobah, get like a nice timeshare. Like they're not all gonna die. You
They
can't.
all die.
It's a kid show on Disney.
It's
I know.
Sons of
I don't
Anarchy.
know about
They're not
that.
all gonna
Sons
die.
of Anarchy. They all die.
So I won't take the
Very
kid.
different
I won't. I will agree with you that they may not all die, but I won't take the it's a kid show on Disney thing, because look what they've already done with the premiere of season 2.
They
and look,
kill a lot of
and
people.
I mean, the
Yeah.
Inquisitor's already toast. So
They
anyone could.
executed that
with the-
female.
they're cutting off heads and
governor-
stuff in
It's
this
not
show.
just a kid show on Disney, but also it's a kid show that airs on Disney. They're not going to kill
if
everybody.
you cut off heads, you can kill anybody. But the thing is, I think that the time period, us, we don't know at what point the show's going to end. It could, Rebels could end, during the time of Episode 4. We don't know. We don't know what those guys were doing. So Rogue One takes place before Episode 4. And we don't know how long before that. So Kanan could still be alive then. Rogue One, if Rebels is still happening by the time Rogue One comes out, which I believe it is, then because it's got to match up.
Yeah, I mean, you run the risk, though, if you overlap Rebels and say Kanan or Ezra or whatever are still alive, you overlap that with the beginning of Episode 4, timeline-wise, right? You're retconning a lot of our understanding of the universe and everything at the time that Star Wars begins, I think that's dangerous ground to tread on.
How are you retconning? Just
Well,
curious.
because you remember our understanding in the Star Wars universe, watching Star Wars Episode 4, is that the Jedi are gone.
He didn't, but he doesn't say every single one. The
Right,
last one.
But
You're the
clearly
last
the
of that
message
religion.
is
Yeah.
clearly the message is the Jedi are extinct. They're
Right.
gone. Obi-Wan is out there, and Obi-Wan alone. And even in the later films, they allude to there are no other Jedi.
Right.
There's Leia.
Right.
There's Yoda. He was chilling.
But that was Yoda saying that.
But Yoda in 4, nobody knew about Yoda in 4 either, because nobody knew he was. Then Obi-Wan said, "You will go see Yoda."
Right, but even Yoda and
the dark
Obi-Wan-
side wasn't aware of where Yoda
right,
was.
and if Kanan's still alive, Vader should know. If whatever at this point, so I just think you're getting into very sketchy ground, which would make me, as I've always been big concern about their whole canon thing.
Yeah.
Don't go doing stuff like
now,
this.
here's something though too, and I know that this, and I'm one of the people who said, well, he was talking about Leia, but there is a way if they wanted to cheat that particular
But that's
conversation.
retconning.
In Episode 5, when Yoda says there is another. Now you would say, well, that's Leia. Well, but Obi-Wan already knew about Leia. Obi-Wan already. I'm just saying, Obi-Wan
But I don't think
knew
Yoda
about Leia
was
already.
saying something to. I don't think Yoda was saying something to Obi-Wan that Obi-Wan didn't know. I think he was saying something that the audience didn't know. I think he's just talking to Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan knows he's talking about Leia. Now,
He said,
But
said
that's
our
the
boy is
definition-
our last hope, and he goes, no, there is another.
yeah, and I think he
I
realized
think,
that because
I think that was Yoda talking about the potential of Leia that Obi-Wan didn't.
I agree that
maybe
initially that's
underestimate.
what it was. What I'm saying, you guys, is
I
if
don't
they
want that
wanted
now.
to cheat it, they could.
Yeah, but it
They
would
could,
be
but it would
cheating.
suck.
It would.
I'm
Yeah, it would
just
be a
saying,
bad
I-
decision.
all right, what's next?
It's stupid, like putting a stormtrooper on the cover of
This
Empire
is a
Strikes Back.
Sith Lord LSD. I
Tristan
like it.
Shields, a.k.a. Grand Moff Shields, will The Force Awakens? That's a different Twitter question. Alex Cavanis writes, with Disney already doing it twice with Marvel, what's the chances of a Star Wars marathon in theaters?
I'll let John answer this one.
100%.
Yeah.
It's absolutely 100%. Why? Because they will make money. People will, idiots like me who have already seen each movie 1,000 times, will gladly pull out my idiot wallet, throw down my idiot money, and go and watch it on the big screen again because I'm an idiot. Of course I want to watch these things on the big screen again with an audience where we're all cheering together. There is no movie-going experience, there's no movie-watching experience better than in theater with an audience of people cheering and laughing and crying and gasping together. It is the best thing in the world. So yeah, you do this and people are going to flock out to it. They're going to make tens of millions of dollars, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars. And it's another marketing tool for leading up to Force Awakens. I have no doubt they're going to do it.
You got to do it.
Yeah, and I'd be up for it too. It'd be like going to see a great rock concert. And you can come in during the opening act, like you can walk in halfway through Phantom Menace, get your seats right, be like, okay, this is where I'm sitting. Get that first Darth Maul lightsaber, go to the bathroom, come back, watch Yoda have that great lightsaber fight at the end of 2. Go to the bathroom, go get some stuff done around town, come back, watch the lightsaber fight at the end of 3, leave before you see Darth Vader say no, and then lock in because you get to see the classic trilogy, or at least most of the classic trilogy, and altered slightly for the special edition.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm going to try to get to as many as I can, and I would even watch all the prequels all the way through.
So would I.
Because I'll tell you what, these are movies, we always talk about there are certain movies that are meant to be watched in the movie theater. And like you said, John, this is the movies to watch in the movie theater.
Yeah.
And even the prequels, they are beautiful looking films. Like the prequels are beautiful looking.
They're gorgeous. They're absolutely beautiful.
It is a special effects mastery when you watch it. So, and the big screen and the sound. I mean, that's what they do. ILM, man.
As much as I shit on the movies all the time, the sound of Jango Fett chasing Obi-Wan through the asteroid field. The sound of
minus
I remember
the pew pew.
The first time those concussion mines go off. I mean, that sound in a theater with a great sound system is just immersive.
I think you'll get
so good.
You'll get 6 Wilhelm screams, I believe, before going up to the Force Awakens.
All right, what's next?
All right, our next tweet comes from it's Journey Goff. Why doesn't Kylo Ren have a Sith name? Anakin is Darth Vader. Could Kylo be a canon incarnation of Darth Revan? I think Darth Harloff might have a different spin on
As far as him being Darth Revan, no. I don't think he'll be Darth Revan. I wouldn't be surprised if the mask ties into, again, like we said, a Sith relic in the Old Republic.
Yeah.
Maybe they take a version of Darth Revan to where he got it from. Who knows? Now, as far as why he has the name, I think that this is where the Inquisitor from Rebels came from. I think because they came up with this idea of who Kylo Ren is going to be. I don't think Kylo Ren is a Sith Lord yet. I think he's an Inquisitor. I think he's a guy out there. You see him in every trailer, and he's with the Stormtroopers, and he's hunting, and I think he's an Inquisitor. That's why he doesn't have Darth, because you didn't have Darth, you just had the Inquisitor. And whatever these new Inquisitors from Season 2 are going to be, you'll get their names, you won't have Darth on it. I think that is reserved for Sith Lords. I think whoever Snoke turns out to be, that will be the Darth that we're going to get. But, John, what do you think?
Hard to say, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. I don't think he's a Sith Lord at this point. I don't think he is. I don't know that Sith. Remember, by the time we get to the end of Return of the Jedi, there are no Sith Lords left. I mean, that was it. So what you're going to have to do is get somebody who is Force sensitive, that gets trained in the ways of the Force, and then turns to the dark side, and that could take however long.
Right.
So I think you're right. I don't think this guy is a Sith Lord yet. I'm still not even sure how he'd be an Inquisitor. I don't know what he is yet, because we haven't read Aftermath yet. We don't know really what transpired after the fall of the second Death Star to set up the context of what this culture is. How would another Dark Force user arise and come into being? Don't know yet. So, but I think you're right. I don't think he's a Sith Lord yet.
Yeah, to quote Yoda, difficult to see, but I think that he's not a partner at the firm yet. That is reduced. Those are the Darths, but he definitely works there. And maybe an Inquisitor might be more in Captain Phasma's line of consciousness. I don't know, but I think that like what you said earlier, if his already might have 2 names, if it's Jason Solo and Kylo Ren, and then maybe he's training to get that Darth title on top of it.
All right, what's next?
All right, our next tweet comes from that really cool Twitter user, Bertova. With there being an awakening in the Force, what are the chances we see Korriban in a feature film?
Well, Korriban was actually I don't necessarily retconned yet, but the name was changed to Moraband. We found that out in the Clone Wars when Yoda went to visit in season 6. It is actually Moraband. They mentioned it in certain novels as far as being Moraband. Now, that's not to say, just like there have been many countries over the years that started with one name and then it turned to something else. So that could be the history of Korriban into Moraband. We don't know. As far as it appearing in one of the future movies, I think it's a given. I think you will definitely see Moraband. I wouldn't be surprised if you see it in The Force Awakens. I think that maybe Kylo Ren or whoever is, if you're going to go into Sith history and going into Sith relics, you've got to go to Moraband. So I would say if it doesn't happen in The Force Awakens, you'll see it eventually in a movie or an anthology or whatever. But Mark, what do you think?
You don't think that's Skellig Michael Island? Do you think that's something else?
No, I think that's where Luke's
that's where Luke's chilling,
Luke
and
is.
Luke wouldn't go back to his dad's old stomping grounds.
Yeah,
but
I don't think that Vader had been to Moraband a lot. Where he used to camp out was where he got burnt up at Mustafar.
Right. But wasn't he born on Moraband? Wasn't that?
No, he was born on Tatooine.
You learn something new every day. Darth Vader? Oh, yeah, Darth Vader. Yeah, that's right. I saw the movie.
Yeah, all right. John?
Well, technically, Vader was born maybe on Mustafar. Maybe you could say that's where Vader was born. You could not be more wrong about this.
Really?
No, I'm kidding. It's a given. It's a given. I think you're right. If there is somebody in this movie, whether it's Kylo Ren, whether it's somebody else that is, a collector of Sith relics, stuff like that, it's like saying, I love all things Disney. I've never been to Disneyland.
Right,
I mean,
right.
it just doesn't make sense. So Force Awakens, I don't know. Maybe, but I do think that whoever's asking the question is totally right. At some point in this new trilogy, they're going to go there. I just have to believe that.
All right, Mark.
Eric Hoskins is, I believe, our next contestant.
Nope.
And it's Clint Vitensky. The Force is not strong with these tweets. Yeah. The novels have been great at filling gaps in the canon, especially as audiobooks. Are the comics worth the price tag, Kristian?
Now I can answer for Campy. Well, he will say the comics are not worth the price tag because of the amount that you get. You don't get enough. I assume what your point's going to be there, and I don't disagree with you. I'm answering for you.
Thanks, John. Kristian, your take.
As far as the content goes, so far so good. There's been a couple. I just talked about Vader, the last issue that I haven't liked, but the series itself has been great. The Kanan series has been great. The Star Wars started out okay, picked up, and now has been great. Lando issue 1 has been fun. Didn't love the Leia series, but for the most part, the issues the Marvel's doing it right. It's been great. Now, as far as the price tag goes, there might be something that once it comes into like a full book, each series, maybe that's more worth the price tag. I don't know. But, John, did I answer for you right in the beginning there?
Pretty close. Here's the thing. I think some of the comics, and I stopped reading them a number of weeks ago, but up till when I was still reading them, they're now... I think, for instance, you'd be better served to expand your understanding of the Star Wars universe by reading a Tarkin or by reading a Lords of the Sith or whatever. The stories, as far as just comic book stories that you're going to get in the comic books, can be quite great as standalone comic book stories. Are they really going to expand your understanding, your grasp, filling in the gaps of canon and give all kinds of stuff? I don't think so. And yeah, for me, it just came down to bang for your buck. Paying nearly $5 for, you read through these comics in about 7 minutes. $5 for 7 minutes, roughly $1 a minute, is not a good investment of your entertainment dollar. So for me, I kind of abandoned the comic books, unfortunately. But I think at some point, a little bit later in the future, like when the collection of Vader comes
That's
out,
what I meant,
$12 for 24 issues.
Right.
Hey, yeah. Then at that point, I'm going to pick them up and I'm going to give them a read. But do you need to be keeping up on them right now? My personal suggestion is no, you don't need to.
My advice, Clint, is just do a show with two people who read all the stuff. Then they'll tell you every bit of information they have.
All right, Mark, what's next?
Let's wait to see on the screen who our next contestant is. Eric Hoskins, the guy I wanted to read his tweet for the last 3 tweets. Do you think we will see Yoda come off Dagobah like they were doing with Obi-Wan and Rebels or any kind of material?
What happened at the end there?
That was a tongue. That was a tongue ellipses.
I think I wouldn't be surprised if they had him come off and go back. I don't really want to see that happen, but I wouldn't be surprised. It wouldn't destroy anything if he went out for a coffee and came back.
I tell you this, I'd rather have him go out for a sandwich from Dagobah than I would have him say, oh, no, that other one I was talking about, remember in Empire Strikes Back? Remember we were talking about the Force. I was like, no, there's another one. That totally wasn't Luke's sister. Do not have that happen.
John.
No, I think they've already kind of laid the groundwork in Rebels for how they can have Master Yoda involved in the other Star Wars stories. He's already spoken telepathically with Kanan. He can already speak to a lot of them from where he is. I think the way they're setting up is Yoda knows he cannot leave.
Yeah.
I think Dagobah, because it's so rich in the Force, hides him. I think it camouflages him. I think he knows he puts other people at risk if he leaves the planet at this point. And I think he knows and he has a sense that he has a few further destiny to play. Of course, we know that that comes with training Luke. So I think, will he be involved? I think so. But I think it's going to be in the way we've already seen him evolved in Rebels.
All right, is that it?
I think we have one more. From Tristan Shields.
Okay.
Yeah, Grand Moff Shields. Will The Force Awakens reference any characters from canon material, for example, Moff Mors, Kanan, or the Inquisitors?
Well, Sloane is definitely going to be referenced in Aftermath that we found out. And Sloane appeared in A New Dawn, which is awesome. I think she'll be too old for her to show up by the time we roll around to The Force Awakens. But I wouldn't be surprised if there are certain characters that pop up, even if it's like a side character that from Rebels that's younger. I wouldn't be surprised if they cross it over. I don't necessarily know if it's going to be like a main character, but I think it'd be fun and cool for material readers, whether it be comics or books or even video games, to get a nice reference. Like, oh yeah, I know that guy. But John, you think that'll happen?
I think on a very, very small level, referencing. Sure, because for instance, we were just talking about the book, The Lords of the Sith, right? Near the beginning of Lords of the Sith, there is a reference to Hera.
Yeah.
But if you did not know anything about Rebels or read New Dawn or whatever, it wouldn't go over your head at all. For all you know, he just mentioned his daughter's name. He's got a daughter named Hera. I mean, that's it.
Right.
It's a throwaway thing. References like that, yeah, I could see them throwing them in there for fans of the expanded universe material. We can't call it expanded universe anymore. I'm sorry. Right. For the fans of the other canonical material, then yeah, I'm sure they will throw in little things here and there. But I think they'll be like they are about the Hera reference in Lords of the Sith. It'll be a throwaway thing, not really necessary, not really play an important role. But references, yeah, I think they'll do it.
Okay, then let me ask you guys this. So you got Moff Mors, you got Kanan, you got Sloane, and you got the Inquisitors. And this question was about The Force Awakens. So if you had to put your money on one of those, are you taking one of them or are you taking the field?
Give me
like somebody else. You got your Moff Mors, you got Kanan, you got Sloane, and you got the Inquisitors. I'm going to say a reference to the Inquisitors, or there might be a new Inquisitor. It's hard to think that because it doesn't seem like this is your daddy's empire anymore. So I don't know that the term Inquisitor would be used. They might use something else in place of that title. But if I had to put my money on something, I'd go Inquisitors.
I think you're right. I think if you're going to reference if it's a reference, Inquisitor is probably a good reference. If it's a character, probably Kanan out of those.
I would say as a character, Inquisitors. As a reference, Mors.
Interesting. Okay. That's it. That's our episode today. It was a fun one. Before we go, I also want to to let you guys know that today our own Obi-Wan Kenobi is going into battle today as well. He is going to be in the Ultimate Schmodown. Look at that graphic right there. You got him. See, it looks like nice and cocky. I like a lot of crap talk has been happening. You got him and the Sith Lord herself, regular on Jedi Council, Tiffany Smith, are going up in a movie trivia battle. It's going to be JTE and the evil demon Finstock. John, how are you feeling going into the battle?
It's basically Obi-Wan fighting a stormtrooper. It's almost unfair. I almost want to tell people, don't bother watching. You already know the outcome. It's like New England Patriots playing a high school varsity team. It's
wow.
It's like to be honest, I'm almost offended to be offered this level of competition.
Wow.
Well,
you're going to be able to see that. See if he can put his money where his mouth is. It's going to be tonight, 6 p.m. on Schmoes on YouTube right here. So make sure after you're done watching this show that you're watching right now, go over there and check it out because it's going to be a battle. That's it. It was a lot of fun. Thank you so much. Thank you for you guys. Make sure you chime in today. Any of the topics that you want to have your voice heard, make sure you comment. We'd love to hear what you're talking about in the Star Wars world. And make sure that you also hashtag Collider Jedi Council. Get your questions on the air. I'd like to thank the council. First, Mark2D2, where can they find you?
Online at 5150 Ellis, Twitter and Instagram. And on Force Friday, I'll be at the Kansas City Improv in Kansas City, Missouri. It's going to be a huge poster of Gallagher in honor of the Star Wars Steelbooks. But trust me, it's me.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, John Campea, where can they find you?
You can follow me on the various social media networks on Facebook and on Twitter at John Campea. Just to be real, I'm terrible at trivia. I'm probably going to lose this thing.
Oh, man.
Just to be real.
Showing your cards.
Just to be real.
showing the cards. And I am Kristian Harloff. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, the whole shebang. Make sure you check me out there, Kristian Harloff. And thank you guys very much. We'll see you next week. May the Force be with you.